After a 4-day wait, help is finally here for hundreds of survivors. Dozens struggle to receive bags of rice. There were also plastic mats to sleep on, but the priority for most is food. It's the first time they receive any assistance from the authorities.
As it comes, we distribute. Because if we say we are going to wait till we got all the relief materials, most especially food, because the principal thing now is food.
Providing adequate shelter could take weeks or months. For now, victims live in unsafe buildings. Religious school student Umar Mahmood scavenges for scrap metals to sell. He narrowly escaped drowning, but his 3 friends didn't make it.
As we tried to escape, they fell and were swept away.
Their bodies were never found. His teachers look after 870 students, most of whom survived. There have been some deaths, but dozens are still unaccounted for.
The losses here are substantial. We are all devastated.
He hopes those missing are still alive. An excavator has arrived at last to not only clear debris, but to find bodies. The delay in removing bodies trapped under the debris poses serious health risk. People here are already reporting the heavy stench of decomposing corpses, raising fears of contamination of food and water sources. The flood arrived early in central Nigeria this year, catching officials ill-prepared. It took days to get relief aid to survivors. People here hope that when the peak of the rainy season arrives, officials will be better prepared. Ahmed, Idris, Jazeera, Mokwa, Nigeria.
Well, let's bring in Bhupinder Tomar. He's the Head of Delegation for Nigeria at the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. He joins me now from Abuja. Bhupinder, what are you hearing from your responders there on the ground? Can you perhaps describe the situation in Mokwa right now?
Thank you, Nastasia, for having us today on your program and highlighting this strategy in Nigeria. As your report said there, the last 2 days has been really an effort to find the people who lost their lives in this tragic event. This was a flash flooding event. It was localized. So as I think your report also highlighted, this is the early part of the flooding season in Nigeria. And sometimes we get these flash flooding events. But in this particular case, I think because it happened during the night, we've seen a lot of tragic loss of life. So far, I think we've seen about 150 people who have lost their lives. And more than lives, I think also the people have lost their homes. The infrastructure in these 8 communities have been destroyed. And it would be difficult for these people over the next 2 months to restore their lives.
You mentioned infrastructure. There was obviously widespread infrastructure damage. What is access like to that area at the moment for rescue teams who are heading in?
So I think the access is difficult, but it is not impossible. I think what you're seeing is that surrounding areas and surrounding communities and also surrounding local government authorities have been able to send some material and support. We, for example, in the Red Cross have mobilized around 50 people, right? And we've been able to reach many of these places, both, in the place where it is impacted, but also downstream in the surrounding communities in a different state called Kowara.
Mm-hmm. Well, as we've been saying, this is obviously still early in rainy season. We're already seeing such destruction. Your teams have plenty of flood response experience. Just how extraordinary is what's happening right now?
I would say this is extraordinary because, we do get flooding in Niger State, every year. But to lose, 159 in a span of few hours in one day is very, very significant for people who live there. Because, of course, in many houses, you have lost significant amount of family members, right? You sometimes have lost up to 50, 60% of the family members in a household. And when that happens, of course, it is very, 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 very sad. And it makes recovery very difficult for people. It is always easy to lose assets, but it is not so easy to lose your relatives and family.
Of course. We know it's the poorest communities who have the greatest challenges when it comes to dealing with climate change. Are there the resources to try to adapt here to make communities like this one more resilient? You need the political will to do all that too.
You're absolutely correct. I think all of us who have been now speaking for almost 2 decades on the impacts of climate change on unnatural disasters, if you want to call it that, is that it is the local communities like now you see in Mokwa who are at the receiving end of the real impact of climate change, because it is these events that are not predictable so easily, that are very localized sometimes, but often extreme, that create the biggest impact, and it's the poorest that suffer the most.
Bhupinder Tomar there, the Head of Delegation for Western Africa at the IFRC. Thank you so much for your time, sir, and we wish you and your crews the best of luck with their work in central Nigeria.
Thank you, Al Jazeera, for having us today.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.